My name is Ian and welcome to Planted. Now in this video I'm going to talk to you about perennials and why they are one of my most favorite groups of plants next to vines. Perennials, I think, are they're widely available and they're used a lot, but there is such a huge group of perennials that we don't use because we can't buy them. And it's not that they're hard to grow or they're very selective in their growing conditions. It's just that they don't sell in large volume. So in this video I've got 5 reasons why you should try and do a lot more with perennials. Now the first thing, as I said earlier, huge wide range. You need to find your zone and match your perennial choices to your climate. It's easy, and I know I say that all the time, but don't buy something that's a zone 9 unless you can protect it and you're in a zone 7. I did a video on that a couple of months ago. So let me get this absolutely straight. Let's start from the very beginning. Perennials are, it's a bit of a misunderstanding. Perennial means multiple year. Annual is 1 year, perennial is multiple year. You could say that trees are perennial, and they are, and so are shrubs, but they've got woody growth. They've got growth that stays visible above ground. Perennials, herbaceous perennials, put out new growth every year. So this will have died down in the fall, and then springtime it'll start to regrow again. That is one of the magic features about perennials, is that you get nice fresh new growth every single year. So if you've got kids that are playing football or soccer and they're throwing a ball into your planted beds and they snap branches, or you have a dog that gets in there and digs a hole, they can damage plant material. Now these plants will get damaged, the leaves will get snapped and the stems will get snapped, but next year it'll grow fresh all over again without any issue whatsoever. So you get that nice fresh growth. But perennials come in the widest range of heights, colors and fragrance and foliage. The list just goes on. You find your zone, you find a perennial that is matching your zone, and you really should consider planting it to give you more color and more interest. Now when you go and buy your plants, here is the trick. And in springtime and early summer, there'll be plants at nurseries that were available for sale last year. They didn't sell, they would have got cut back and then put out for sale this year. These are absolutely worth having. Now the reason I say that is that you will find that these plants have got lots of stored energy in a really big root system. And what I want you to do is put your hand over the plant like this, invert everything. If a little bit of potting mix comes out, that doesn't matter. But what you're looking for are these little shoots. You could cut that out, stick that into a pot, and you'd have a brand new plant. Now, I did that with my clump. This is a plant called Trichurtis. I did that with my clump, and I've got so many of them here. 14 came from one clump. So I bought one plant, put that in the ground, left it 2 years, dug it up, and I got all these new pups. But what you can do is you can go out and buy 1 or 2 plants, take them home, invert it, carefully separate it, divide it, put them into new pots. You might get 3 plants from this, and then grow them in those pots for 2 months and then plant them out. And you can really bulk up your numbers. So this is very easy to do. If you go into a nursery or a garden centre and you deftly pick up a pot, stick your hand over it, invert it, nothing gets broken, and there's your plant, and then you put it back on again and put it back right. You look like a pro. You look like you know what you're doing. And just be careful, don't damage the plants and put them back. That's not fair on the nursery. But you want a nice full root ball with little side shoots that you can then take some more propagated cuttings from, or divisions. Now, when it comes to dividing plants, I think people get very apprehensive. There'll be a link in the description for how I divide perennial plants, and I'll put that in there and you can have a look at it. But perennial plants divide very, very easily. You separate the root ball into equal pieces. You'll have a shoot, you'll have some roots, and that's it. You put them into a pot and off you go. So you really can get a nice clump of colour from just one plant. Now, this is a little plant. Let me choose one for you. This is a little plant called sage or salvia, but it's rather choice. It's got the fancy name of Salvia foxholii. Now, I'm sure I've butchered the name. I've never ever seen it for sale before. Saw it online and thought that looks really interesting. Got it 2 years ago, grew it last year, and it puts out these beautiful arching blue stems like many salvias. I love the foliage. Elegant, exotic, tough, hardy. It checks all the boxes. But I had to buy it mail order, and that's what I encourage you to do. There's a lot of companies that have a mail order service. Really good website, good images, lots of information to help you make your decision. And what you can do nowadays is track that as it comes across the country. I'm not much of a shopper, but when I shop for plants, you can be sure that I'm making sure that I know where those plants are and when I'm going to get them. I dug this clump up, and I have a whole tray here of divisions that I did. Oh gosh, when was this? This is probably three months ago. These will get planted out probably in 8 weeks. Getting into April, they'll get put out into the ground. And what I'm going to do with them is make sure that I get a group planting. And it's very tempting that this is one variety of perennial, and this is another variety of perennial, and here we have another. And these all get planted the same distance apart, and I bought one of each and I stick them in as one of each. If you'd like to, you can do that, but I recommend that you don't. What I recommend you do is that you take 3 of these, or 5 or 10, or however many you've got space for, and you plant them about 14 inches apart and create a clump. The magic that happens with that is that this little plant will put up a stem that will grow up. It'll have flowers and it will arch over. If you've just got one source of this plant putting up flowers, it's going to look attractive. But what you really want is another plant in close proximity, and it has its flowers coming up and coming across. And this one grows up and goes across. So you get this layered or overlapping effect. This entire tray will be planted at 14 inches apart, and it'll be kind of an amorphous or amoeba shape, but it will look as if it's a drift, as if it's one plant. This is the way to go. If you buy individual plants, it can be a little bit expensive, but if you are able to buy a plant, grow it, divide it, and then put the whole tray in, now you're going to have a beautiful display. So I really think that group plantings of multiple plants is the way to go. And let me just explain this. You would have your amoeba shape, oval, however, whatever height, whatever width. Then you'd have a little bit of a gap, and then your next planting. So the heights would be like this, dome shape coming down, and then you'd have another one coming up and coming down. And it might be spiky and taller, it could be lower, but you want that little bit of a gap. So don't put your perennials in all the same distance apart without any architecture about drifting. Drifting really is the way to go. And the last thing that really sets perennials apart, besides all the other stuff that I just said, is you can choose a color theme. Now I'm really drawn to blue, white, cream, and pink. You put those colors together and it's restrained. It's just breathtaking. And when people see a planting in those colors, they just stare at it because it is so attractive. Now, I'm not a fan of yellow. I do have some yellow plants, and the same with red and orange. The plant has to be remarkable for it to get into my garden with those colors. But perennials are such a wide choice. There's such a wide range of plants that you can use. You can choose your own palette. Now, how nice would it be if you had a red border with spiky foliage and soft foliage and low and high and all the different things, but red was the overriding theme. You can do that with perennials. It's difficult to do with shrubs and other groups of plants, but because there are so many plants in the perennial family, you can absolutely do it. If you go onto a website, it's monrovia.com. They grow beautiful, beautiful plants, and they're available across the country. But monrovia.com has got a search engine that lets you search your zone, lets you search perennials, and then lets you search for your color. So go on that, have a look. Well worth doing. And the final thing I want to say is that these plants come back year in, year out. So unlike annuals, which will die when it gets frosted, or poorly planted trees and shrubs and ground cover that die anyway, perennials, if planted properly, will come back next year, and you'll be rewarded with even more flowers. And this is where it gets really interesting. You get 10 different varieties of perennials. You buy 3 or 5 of each, or you buy 1 and propagate your own plants. You're going to have this wonderful display, and it doesn't cost a fortune, or rather it need not cost a fortune, and you'll get the display that you're always looking for. So I hope that helps. Please have a go at perennials. There's a lot of research and reading you can do. I keep coming back to them time and time again because of their vitality and their ability to just excel. So on that note, thank you for watching. Happy planting, and bye for now.